Right, I'm here this evening with Pete Molyneux, the author of the book Ta Ra Fergie. He also held the flag all those years ago. So Pete, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Dale. And yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. I was laughing yesterday when you sent the email and you gave yourself a little dig as well. So those years before you held the flag under Ferguson, it must have all led with serious frustration. How did all add up, and when did it start that you were thinking, right, enough's enough?
Yeah, I mean, the frustration had come through quite a bit of the 80s, even before Fergie,
Yeah.
under Atkinson, mainly because Liverpool were running away with the title most years. But I think with Fergie, of course, what happened briefly was he was doing things behind the scenes, but after 3 years in, the football was still fairly poor, very inconsistent, you know, players being played out of position and not players we thought were right for the United jersey. The crowds were falling and the results were bad. So the combination was very frustrating. I think the 5-1 defeat at City in September was really bad. And then we went out to Spurs in the League Cup 3-0 at home end of October. And I think that was the time when I thought, right, I can't just take this anymore.
Yeah.
And all you can do as an individual, and I would never have stopped watching United. I'm United through and through, always have been. So I thought I've got to protest in some way, and I thought the target had to be the manager because I felt he was responsible, having spent all that money and not getting the results.
See, the thing is, and people will laugh at it nowadays, because we've been so lucky with success, and you know we've seen it all and we won it all, but the way I see it is, a lot of the young fans are probably looking at you and thinking, what was he thinking? But then there was years that were tough, and I'm sure if Moyes goes through those 3 years, multiply you by a few hundred. You know, football has changed so much. There's not much loyalty in it anymore. Would Moyes get 3 years if he won nothing? I don't think so. Personally, I'd give him support, but the vast majority probably wouldn't, because there's a lot of them out there that are spoilt.
I think you're right. You're spot on, Dale. I mean, 3 years now seems a long time. I thought I'd given him enough time then, and for sure it does sound daft. And one of the reasons I wrote the book, I haven't done it to try and justify myself. I live with the fact now that I was the guy that held that up, and people can make their own judgment. But I've just explained briefly in a couple of chapters how it built up and what I did and why I did it, and the support it had from the fanzines, from many supporters. On the day, the reaction was very positive. I mean, I wouldn't say I was scared stiff, but I was very apprehensive about holding up the banner. I knew it seemed a bit disloyal, and yet I was loyal to United. I didn't know how the crowd would react, but it was like a domino effect going from where I sit in the old J stand, either side of me. The applause started and people stood up and started cheering in response to the banner. So at the time, most people felt it was the right thing to do. But of course, down the line, it took another couple of years before we realised Fergie was the man, you know. Whether we'd give him time now, I hope there'd be a loyalty there to give Moyes a chance. But football fans they want instant success, don't they now?
Very fickle.
Yes, they can be, and I got accused of that. There was a little cartoon I remember in United We Stand when we won it in 1993, and there was a little cartoon of a guy with long hair saying "Fergie out, Fergie out," with Fergie out banner, and then another one saying "Hey, United champions, United champions," and underneath it just said, "Do you suffer from fickle fan disease?" You know.
No, but I read the story. It wasn't too long ago either. A red issue about you.
Oh, right.
And it had some quotes about you, and it said you've went to over 2,000 games. So I don't think anyone could question your loyalty.
No, I guess now people kind of know a little bit more, because the story went nowhere for quite a long time. I held the banner up. There's a bit of a hoo-ha. When we won the league 4 years later, people took the mickey a little bit, quite rightly. But it didn't really surface again till the 20-year anniversary of the banner in 2009. And then people realised I was still around. I remember a letter, again, someone in Red Issue said, and what about that tosser that held up the banner in 1989? I bet he's a banker now, So I wrote a little letter to Red Issue, I just said, look, I'm not a banker or anything that rhymes with it. I still sit in the same seat, I still support United, and I love Fergie, because he's become the right man, But no, I've followed United for just 50 years now, Dale, and I think I'll follow him till the day I die. I love him, and of course at the time, the reason I held the banner up was because I loved United. I didn't want Fergie as a manager, as daft as it sounds, but I'm a believer in life that if you accept second best, you'll get second best.
Yeah.
And so I just had to make my voice known. Little did I know it was just he was just about to turn things round, and thank God he did. I'm happy to be shown wrong.
So before you wrote the book, you've obviously gone on and wrote a book about the flag and the reasoning and whatnot. Had you got experience beforehand of writing? Had you wrote for fanzines, for magazines, for newspapers? Was it just something you just decided to pick up and explain?
Yeah, I hadn't written before, never written a book before. I just did the odd little bit for the fanzines, very rarely. I did a couple of pieces for a couple of Ian McCartney's books. But no, I'm not a writer. I remember when Fergie did his about turn in 2002 and didn't retire, and thinking, right, I've always had this thought that I'd do a book about my travels. And I thought then, I'll call it Ta Ra Fergie. And it could come out when he goes, and I'd tell the banner story. It would come out when he goes, and in between I'd tell my story of following United for what would have been 40 years then. And I got scribbling. Then in 2007 I got made redundant from work, took the money and ran, and started doing the book properly. And it took about 3 years. And the publishers thankfully held on and with this idea that they would call it Ta Ra Fergie, and it would come out when he went. But of course it went on year after year after year. So the book's a bit thicker than it would have been, Dale.
No, I'm looking forward to reading it now. So obviously it would have been awkward if you met Ferguson after all these years. I believe you have. Did you ever say to him that you were the guy with the flag?
No, I've not had the balls to do that. One thing, no, I've met him informally, just at a few friendly matches in the days when you could get close to the team and the, up at Dumbarton and East Fife, and just had a bit of a chat and whatnot. One thing I have done is I took a copy. I found out his address through a close source, and I delivered a copy of the book to his house. Now, it was the day, I didn't know this, but I came home after I delivered the book to his house, and there he was watching Andy Murray on the telly at on the centre court at Wimbledon. So he was out for the day. Lady Cathy was out, but I talked to his his groundsman or his mechanic who was there. He was very friendly, said he'd pass the gift on. I told him it was a book about United, and he said, "Oh, you should have written about City." I said, "Why?" He said, "Are you a City fan?" He said, "Yeah, Lee, Bell, Summerby, all that." He said, "I grew up with." So turns out Fergie's right-hand man there at his household at Fergie Towers is a blue. But so hopefully the great man has got a copy of the book now. Whether that's in the bin somewhere now, Dale, I don't know, but he's not come back to me yet.
So you've met the man. You've never said that you're the guy with the flag. Would you, in 3 years' time, if the similar circumstances happen with Moyes, I'm not saying it will because the club has changed now, there's better players at the club and it's in a much better state, would you ever do something similar with Moyes, have to learn from your mistake?
I'd think very, very carefully, and I'd probably at the time I was going to do it, I'd then probably think, no, wait another 12 months, Pete, just in case. I hope to God I'm never in that situation where I have to even think about it, because the football would have got so bad for us all, you know, and the decline would have been quite like dropping off a cliff face. I hope to God I'd never have to do it, and I certainly would think very, very carefully about doing it. But,
I think the thing is, and you made the point that when you did hold the banner up, it was because you loved United and you weren't happy with the managerial situation. We weren't playing good football and we were losing games. But that was, how you felt. And I think the problem with football nowadays, there's so many bandwagons. and you have people that, oh, I'll say this because he said that. You know, there's no real kind of, there's no one leading the bandwagon really. In a way you did, because you said that you held the banner up and people were kind of looking up and they started chanting and they started agreeing with you. I'm sure if you met the same people today and you asked them now, they start laughing and you'd all have a laugh because we went on and we moved on and we won so much, and it was all because there was faith shown in Ferguson. I think looking at the squad that he inherited, there was a lot of work to be done. And you know that was never going to be done in a year or two, and especially football back then, because it's not like it is now. You have City and you have PSG, and the new manager comes in, and it's a matter of days before they can throw up money and get in. You know, some of the hottest prospects in the world. You know, football was so different back then, and
it was still mainly a British. We didn't bring in that many players from abroad. A few were starting to come in from maybe Holland and Scandinavia, but no, I know what you mean. It's a lot more intense, the world now. Of course, I mean, with hindsight, you're right, Fergie was turning it round behind the scenes. But of course, you know, from I saw when I first started watching United, I saw them win the league in '65 and '67, and that was great, with a fantastic team that went on to win the European Cup. You know, I was fortunate enough that my father took me to that game as a 13-year-old. You know. Now, after that, United always seemed to be only a couple of players away from winning the league. Under Doherty, under O'Farrell. You know, we always thought we were just going to catch Liverpool up very soon, and it went on year after year after year. So when Fergie took over from Atkinson's cup-winning side and had seen that just failed to make that push on to outrun Liverpool in the final stretch, we thought it only needed a bit of tinkering, Dale. You know. But you're right, behind the scenes it needed restructuring.
I think a big thing is well, I was watching a documentary not so long ago on Norman Whiteside, and he was kind of just saying that before Fergie came in, he's heard from other people talking about a party with Atkinson, and it was the day before Fergie came in that all the players were out on the piss. With Atkinson, they're having a big celebration, and then they came in the next morning when Ferguson took over initially and met the players and spoke to them, and they were all sick. You know, Ferguson immediately seen that, and he totally had to get rid of some players that had that attitude. And some of those players, it was a big risk getting rid of them, because some of them were fans' favourites. You know.
Oh, they were heroes. Norman Whiteside, a massive hero. Paul McGrath, massive hero. And who I think were maybe two of the mainstays of the drinking club. But Brian Robson was, but he persevered with Brian Robson.
Yeah, Robson was different class though.
But he did. Yes, he was. He did face things behind the scenes that needed sorting. But of course, on the surface, as fans, we don't see that. Yeah. Not much came out in those days. You know, there's no Twitter and no Facebook and all that. So everything's instant now, isn't it? They would have been pictured in drinking in Bowden or Hale, having a few beers, and the picture would be around the world before they got home, you know. So it was a slightly different world, but Fergie addressed them, and credit to him, and he just about did it in time, you know. But it was all, of course, magnified as well by Liverpool's success, you know. They just were relentless, and it was driving us crazy, absolutely crazy, you know.
Do you know? But even you've obviously seen the years in the second division.
Yes.
And you can relate to how lucky we are today and different things. When we were in the second division, for the first few weeks especially, we just battered teams.
Oh yeah. Yes, it was. It was traumatic going down to the second division.
Yeah.
6 years after winning that European Cup, it sounds unbelievable, and we'd only just missed out on relegation the year before. And yet, Tommy Doc turned that round, and United came charging out of that second division, playing some beautiful football during the second division matches, and then they carried it through into the top flight in 75, 76 and 76, 77. And I still sometimes think Tommy Doc doesn't get the praise it deserves for turning United round then, There
was some good football played under Doherty, He often said that the people of Manchester, the fans, the followers, they want attractive football, and that's what he gave us. There was loads of goals, you know. It was attacking.
He played the United way. Talk about Fergie playing the United way and Moyes boys playing the Fergie way, you know, we'll all go wild. Well, Tommy Dock encapsulated everything about United in terms of the style. And Coppell and Hill were superb wingers, brilliant wingers. And it was, and this isn't just me being romantic about the past. I try and be quite objective, even though I'm getting on a bit. I don't see that everything was great then and everything's rubbish now. There's good and bad to all times, but that team needed to go down and get its confidence in the second division by winning games. We'd gone 3 years without really putting any runs in, you know, any decent runs. And again, that's the story I wanted to tell, Dale. It's not just about, very little of the book is just about the banner. It's about following United through that second division, you know, and some of the great crowds, some of the great games. I covered the trip to Millwall, which, you know, there's not many United supporters I know that can tell tales about getting in and out of Millwall on that Monday night. That was a bit traumatic. Going to Ostend for my first European away, you know, in '74, and I went to Turin in '76, and then Lodz in Poland in 1980, you know, and so some of those stories I've wanted to get out and share with people, because we had a good time, we had a good laugh, it was a good adventure, and it wasn't all just about drinking or fighting, you know, there was some of that, but it was just funny tales that happened to us along the way, and hopefully I've put those together so that other Reds of all ages could enjoy, you know. They've always been great times, whether it was Doherty or Atkinson. Sexton wasn't so great. He kind of didn't get the message.
I was actually watching one of his first interviews the other day, and he spoke about attractive football, and I just laughed.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't too attractive.
He's a good man through and through, I'm sure, but he didn't get the United way thing, and he wouldn't listen. He felt his own way was good. But you know, he came in with good credentials. Having managed Chelsea to an FA Cup and a Winners' Cup title, but so you never know. But
so you've been quite lucky, you know. The whole reason behind this conversation is obviously about Ferguson. I'm sure anyone's going to talk to you and know that you wrote the book that's going to be about Ferguson. But you've seen Busby. You know, you say you went to the game in the 60s. You've seen all the rest up to Fergie too. So
yeah,
you've got a good grasp of how the managers have worked, and you know you can get a real comparison. Whereas a lot of the younger fans, and myself included, we've seen Fergie, and now we've seen Moyes, and it's a big change. It's a new chapter, you know. It's something we've never witnessed. But I'll be honest with you, it's a day I've dreaded all my life. But it's a new chapter I'm excited about. I'm looking forward to it because it's something new. It had to come someday.
You're spot on, I think, Dale. It's a real double-edged sword, isn't it? Between I even a few years ago, only 5-6 years ago, you think, God, what's going to happen when Fergie does go? You know, because that's a real big end of an era, and you hoped he'd go on, but then as he got into late 60s and then touched 70, and you thought, well, it's going to be this year or next or whatever, and so that there's a little bit of fear there, I think, apprehension, let's say, and yet there's also an excitement for, let's see how Moyes does. You know, I'm sure he'll try and keep the same recipe. I mean, if anything, he's got the recipe for Cola there, hasn't he? And he should treasure it. He's also got, I think the key will be, he's got Fergie in the background.
Yeah.
Now McGuinness had Busby in the background. I've just read Wilf McGuinness's book, which is very good. Wilf McGuinness says now there was a misconception that Busby tried to intervene, you know, and it seems now that McGuinness should have gone to Busby a little bit more for advice, and Busby would have helped, but Busby stood back because he didn't want to seem to be interfering. So the key will be the relationship between Moyes and Fergie, of Moyes being his own man, but just when it gets a bit tricky about a transfer, about a situation, about the press, you've got Fergie there sat in the back and they can go and talk to. And they seem to have a healthy respect for each other. So hopefully for a few years we should be okay, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. So you still go to games, Pete?
Yeah, I got a season ticket there, Dale, and I still sit in the same seat in what was Jay's stand now, just on the corner there in one of the quadrants. Yeah, Yeah, I sit with the same lads I've sat with for about, well, we've been in those seats since '88, so that's getting on a few years. So, yeah, still go. I get to as many away games as I can. Not all of them now, but as many as I can. And I still love it, Dale. You know, it still gives me a buzz. And I'm looking forward to this season. And I'd like another European Cup. And that was always a big thing for me, having, I think, come through that time as a young lad, and United won the European Cup in '68. That's where United should be, winning the Champions League. Like us to, we should have conquered Europe a little bit more, I think, in Fergie's reign, and I do say that. But that's not a criticism.
No, it's not. I'm sure he'd say the same thing to you. You know, we've been unlucky in Europe a lot of the times too. So I wouldn't entirely put it down to, you know, Fergie. I know you're not doing that, because look at last season against Madrid.
Oh,
you know, it was heartbreaking, and apparently Ferguson's response to that was he was quite annoyed by it. You know, that was apparently a big turn in his managerial career, because he kind of thought, you know, that was his last chance, which it was.
I think, yes, if he says he was thinking at Christmas that this might be his last season, he was setting his stall out to get that last European Cup, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he'd done it. I went to Madrid, and the tactics were perfect over there. We could have easily beaten Madrid in Madrid. And at home, it was just boiling up to one of the great football matches that I've seen, you know, in 50 years. We'd taken the lead, Madrid were coming at us, and the world and the 70,000 in the stadium were. It was just set up beautifully for a grandstand finish, and then a silly refereeing decision ruined it, really.
It was an awful decision. So anyway, I'm going to get a bit of background on you before we finish up. Just a few quick questions about you following United down the years. About,
sure.
You know, who do you see as the biggest rival now, and what was your favourite rivalry down the years? I think I guess at that one, but anyway, go ahead.
The biggest rivals now? Well, in a way, it's been fun to have City as rivals again, because for nearly 30 years you couldn't get an argument out of a City fan in Manchester or outside Manchester. But again, when I was growing up, City did come to the fore in '67, '68. So the banter's good, and the banter on the terrace, you know, it really is. You could cut it with a knife. So I kind of enjoy that, as long as they come second. I think Mourinho, I rate Mourinho, and I did think Mourinho would be United's next manager, but I see where we're going for a bit of long-termism rather than short-termism.
Yeah.
But Chelsea with Mourinho, Chelsea were a good side last season, and Mourinho will make them even better. They're going to be the big rivals for sure.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing, you know, I think Pellegrini's a good manager too, but you know, it's all very different. The league is totally different next season. There's no Ferguson. There's 3 new managers. There's 3 top teams: City, Chelsea, and United. You know,
right.
I've heard some people on the radio and the newspaper saying it's going to win the league next year. I couldn't even tell you. You know, even though I follow United, and if you ask me every season, I'd say we're going to win the league. I can't say that next year because you have 3 new managers. Yeah. What's going to happen? Your guess is as good as mine.
And you're right. And I think, you know, I think we see in the last few days of Wenger, God bless him. I've kind of warmed to Arsene Wenger over the years and come to respect him. He'll want to go out in a bang, you know. So you've got Arsenal there, but I think he wouldn't bet on them. But they're there. Liverpool, I think, are where we were somewhere in the 80s. They're not even close. You know, I don't think. But did you say who was the biggest rivals in the past?
Growing up, going to games. Which game, when you look at the calendar every season, which one were you looking out at?
Always the derbies, often the Liverpool games, but in the late 60s, early 70s, Leeds United, and I cover them in the book. They were the damned United. I think that's a brilliant film. I think Brian Clough got it spot on because they brought the dark side into football, the gamesmanship and the cheating, and not all the time, but a lot of the time they were very, very cynical. And United, it was like the beauty versus the beast with United and Leeds in the second half of the 60s and the early 70s. So they were real keen rivals and rivalries on and off the terraces, and but a good bit of fun as well most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Moyes has come in. Will he be successful?
I think he will be. I think he needs to win a trophy other than the Charity Shield. I mean, ideally in the first year, if he got a title under his belt,
An FA Cup.
Yeah, Fergie needed time, and without that first trophy, he was running out of time. Any manager needs time, and you get time by winning something, and then people say, okay, right, he can do it. We'll give him a bit more time. So, I think he will be successful. I think he's got all the right credentials, and he's a junior Fergie, isn't he, in many ways. But he'll need a bit of luck. He'll need a thick skin, and he'll need the grace of God. I think it's. I think he will be successful, yeah, and I think he'll win a European Cup as well. I'll stick my neck out. A title in a European Cup in 3 years, Dale. What do I know?
I'm awaiting a banner. So we spoke about Mourinho and we spoke about Moyes. Moyes wasn't your initial choice, was he?
No, Mourinho, I thought, to be honest, when he came to Madrid, when he came to the game at Old Trafford, his whole demeanour, and when you saw him on the telly afterwards, I thought he'd already got the job. He was talking about like a man who was in another job, but he knew that soon down the line he'd be in the new job. I've never seen him so self-effacing and so gracious, and I thought he was the one that could guarantee a title in a European Cup, perhaps within 3 years. But what we've learned is Fergie's built an empire, a dynasty there. All the things are in the right places, with the training ground, the medical staff, the coaching staff, etc. Although I know we've had changes there. And really, I think we wanted somebody who would embrace that mixture of building the youth players, getting the lads coming through, and then every now and again buying in a bit of magic, and embracing that building for the future. I'm not sure Mourinho does that. He may have changed his way if he'd have come to United. I don't think he'd have wanted to come just for a few years. I think he'd wanted to come and stay a bit. And even if he didn't start that way, I think he'd have fallen in love with United. I think you do fall in love with Manchester United and everything around it, I thought he had the job, but no, I'm comfortable with Moyes now, 100% behind Moyes, and let's hope he can do it for all our sakes.
I look forward to speaking to you in 3 years' time, P.
Right.
See your support for Moyes then.
Well, it's solid now, but of course it was solid for Fergie at the start, But no, I don't want to write another book, Dale. That's not the plan, Other than one that says, well, fantastic, Moyes, you murdered him, sort of thing. But,
so speaking about the book, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
We'll give it a mention on the blog, and of course, when this goes live, there'll be a link for people to buy it. I'm sure it's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's in Waterstones and Smiths, yeah.
No worries. So I'll get that up. It was great talking to you as well, Pete. Some good insight on the olden days, and of course when you stuck up the flag. And I suppose you kind of you regret it in one way, but still you have a great story to tell. There's always you're never going to be stuck for conversation because of that. Yes, you probably thinking about it now. It was a bit daft of what Ferguson went on to do, but it's a story. And you wrote a book on it, so fair play. You made something of it.
I didn't think I'd be dining out on it 24 years later. That certainly wasn't the intention when I did it. But no, you're right. It's given me a bit of a foothold there to tell my story that's more than just the banner, But hopefully people, I just love Reds to read it, and I think they'll enjoy it. I hope they'd enjoy it. But it's out there. They can, if they have a look at it, they can make their own mind up. But it's been lovely talking to you, Dale, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk through. Through Stretty News, really, really pleased about that.
I'm sure we'll be talking again anyway, and we'll speak to you in 3 years.
Okay, all right.
All right. Take care,
Dale.